Hello, everybody. Thank you for waking up and shining on with us here at Project Bring Me to Life. Today, we have an amazing interview with a molecular subatomic engineer. We cover all kinds of awesome stuff from the divine blueprint to the 12 temple Stargate system, the Jehovah's seals, and even cancer on an energetic level.
Yeah, a lot of great information coming out to you guys from this wonderful energetic healer, and it was a really powerful interview.
Yeah, there is some big topics being covered. We do have some other sources, so if you are interested in chakras and Reiki and you want some information on that before, feel free to check us out at projectbringmetolife.com. And also, if this interview makes any questions pop up in your brain, we would love for you to send us those questions to projectbringme2life@gmail.com. So that's projectbringmetolife@gmail.com with the number 2. I believe I say that email somewhere in this interview, so if I say it wrong, I apologize. And we'll have the link we'll have our email in our description. So
yeah. So while you're listening, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at PBM2L. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Project Bring Me to Life. If you're listening on iTunes or Spreaker or any other audio platform, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Just search Project Bring Me to Life. Vice versa, if you're watching this on YouTube, why don't you go ahead and follow us on iTunes or our Spreaker, where you can download each audio. So check that out.
Yeah, and just in general, we want to say we're really grateful for you listening, and we hope that you have time to check out some of our other interviews and connections with people, and we're just really grateful to have you. So please enjoy this interview, and until next time. For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning, and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Welcome to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of that, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Awakening humanity to spirituality and higher consciousness.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for waking up and shining on with us today at Project Bring Me to Life. We have an awesome interview with an awesome spiritual healer of sorts. And I want to introduce Mr. Dorian Fraser.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here, you guys.
Yeah. Always an honor to have, people like you and what you do. You do healing and Reiki and stuff like that. You do Reiki? Is that what you call it?
Well, all right, you guys ready?
Ready.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Basically, I took 2 years of medical Reiki, some of the most in-depth stuff I could really find on the planet. I was just extremely blessed to kind of be walking through my hometown street in Laurel, Maryland, and I just happened to look up and saw an acupuncture studio, even though I've walked on this street a million times, and was like, no way. And then I looked down at the next window and saw a Reiki sign, and I was like, wow, there's, because I was aspiring to learn, and I was kind of in a lost, I don't want to say lost, but in a kind of confused place, and but that's what I was trying to pursue, and it just fell right into my lap, aligned exactly as it's supposed to, and took 2 years in that, and then ultimately, I basically just started remembering stuff. I just started intuiting a lot of stuff through just physiological observations, just by watching people's behaviors, because for whatever reason, the way that I am built, I basically can amplify any frequency that I want. It could be 432 hertz. It could be 0.1 hertz. It could be 2 hertz. It could be scalar waves. It could be an emotion. It could be a phrase. It could be thank you, you're welcome, it's okay. Any energetic signature I can basically isolate and transmit and amplify. So the way that I'm built causes literal physical stimulation of people's body, involuntary reaction. And that's kind of how I started to develop my practice was, I began to realize it's happening to people. And I was like, I don't know if this is normal, but there are other people out there that do it. But, the way that I look at it is everybody has their own gift. Everybody's built a specific way. And you can either continue to, through sheer diligence and discipline, acquire what you want, or you can go with what you naturally have and then, ultimately encompass everything around that. And that's kind of what I did. So long story short, I am basically a molecular / subatomic engineer. I have learned to access people's particles that aren't recognized by mainstream science yet, the emotions, the disharmonic oscillating patterns that get stored in people's matrices from their cells and their muscles and their bones and all of their body and their energetic systems, and basically collapse the structural integrity of these said distortions and ultimately recode it, reharmonize it, reformat it to its divine blueprint. I'm basically a keylontic scientist and a particle engineer on a biological level.
Wow, that was covering a lot really fast, but I think a lot of people may have some questions now. Like one of the first things is, what is a divine blueprint, and how do you arrange that subatomic structure?
The divine blueprint is your original Christic coding. So there are many ways to do this, and one of the ways that I do it is I just simply intend to re-Christ code it. Just that simple intention, that sheer intention alone has the ability to recorrect it to its original form. And that could turn into a whole bunch of other topics in terms of divine blueprints, because the chakras themselves, the current program that's installed in humanity, is actually a major distortion that was purposely done by invading races roughly about 25,500 BCE. This was done to the planet, which ultimately affected every inhabitant being born into the Earth matrix, as we are part of it. And, I don't want to say anything's incorrect, but it's not the most efficient program to be running in someone. The most efficient program is the micro tree of life. And that's basically this is going to have a lot of questions coming off this. It's basically the 12 Templar Stargate system, where you can access all of your past lives. Each dimension is connected to each signet or point in the body, and ultimately it relates more to pre-matter grids as opposed to the chakras, which are a byproduct of that. Now, what's incorrect about the chakras is that if you look into physics, they are dimensionally separate, which is just it makes no sense if you really understand unified field physics, because basically all of the chakras should be unified under one field. It should be one flowing continuum of frequencies, not just separate, because this was done in order to basically, it's going to sound a little crazy, but, access us from alternate dimensions and feed other, finitely programmed beings and universes. This was done as an act of separation, because basically this did a plethora of things, including, really mess up our DNA, because this disconnects our 12 DNA strand template. And that's a big part of my work, is going in and basically collapsing these seals that are inside the center of the toroidal field of each chakra, or that 0 point.
Real quick, can you give us like a short definition of what a chakra is for someone who may not know?
Well, a chakra is basically an energetic vortex in someone's body that ultimately transduces or transforms subtle energy into electrical signals and then ultimately into chemical ones.
Awesome. Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know what a chakra is and they want to know more, to kind of keep on the same pace, we do have an article on projectbringmelife.com that breaks down the seven main chakras that you see. There's definitely way more that Dorian's talking about, as well as we have a interview with Amanda Amethyst on the Divine Blueprint that breaks that down a little bit more, because I just want everyone to kind of know that we have resources to get even deeper into some of these topics, because you're covering a lot of awesome things that I'm so excited to talk about.
Sorry, I know it can be a lot of jargon as well,
It's great though. We actually have we have resources for all of these things.
I'm proud of you guys, because I find a lot of people always ask me, oh, where do you get your sources? Where do you get your sources? And it's really not too hard to find them, but there's not too many of them.
It's true.
And, And right now I'm kind of, through my own direct experience, writing a lot of these things down. It's very fascinating, really. For example, I'll give you this one real quick, and then, you guys can take it wherever you want.
You're fine.
There are these seals. Basically, they're called the Jehovian seals. And what these seals do is they're located on the left side of the body on the 7th axonal line. The axonal lines are essentially the nervous system of the chakra system itself. They're what's directly allowing them to communicate with one another. They're not just floating balls or vortices in the body. They actually have wiring that connects them all together. And once again, it is more efficient to actually work with these electromagnetic circuitries that pertain to the communication of the chakras than to work with the chakras themselves. And then even further, you're working with the chakra seeds, which is the blueprint of the chakra. So, there's a lot of byproducts that kind of get worked with in the field, and it's all good. Everyone's going to come to find this out soon enough. But back to my point. So the Jehovian seals, they restrict the 7th axonal line. This was done once again planetarily, and us being born in here, we inherited that same energetic mutation. So what it does is it created a schism between the feminine and masculine energies of the planet and in the body. So what I do is I do what's known as a sacred marriage on a micro-personal level, which is where you go in and you remove these seals with extremely high oscillating frequencies. And, you have to ultimately realign the circuitry so it's communicating properly. And then you go in the heart, and there's something on the heart of a lot of people that, once again, most people don't know. It's called a 4D frequency fence. This was done to kind of numb the population, as I'm sure most can see how it is. And, you resynthesize that energy in the heart spaces. That's what it is. It's an energetic synthesizer that ultimately, alchemically, creates a substance of neutrality. The mother, the father creates the son. And without that alchemical process occurring in one's body, you can't get a high pulsating particle, or a low pulsating particle transmutation or a high frequency infusion all the way down to the cellular level. Meaning, in other terms, you won't get any stimulation that occurs.
Crazy. So it sounds like basically the way you're explaining is how each person has their own blueprint, similar to like a building, but it's a blueprint for the personal energy that's coming through to this reality. So before we even manifest in a physical world, we have created this spiritual blueprint, and that's what you're able to go in and kind of engineer in case when we were creating said blueprint, if something got altered by, let's say, an energetic virus or that's just my term for it. An energetic virus gets into our blueprint or our computer system before we physically manifest, and you're able to go in there and help us remove those habits and create a more positive experience in this reality or this dream world that we're all experiencing together.
Absolutely. And, kind of one of the key things ultimately in my work is just human activation. It is literally going from a carbon blueprint to a silicate matrix, or a literally lighter form where we can embody more photonic energy and transduce.
Are you still?
This is ultimately what I'm doing. Sorry.
You just cut out for a second. Sorry.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know where I'm at anymore. There's so much,
Right.
That's understandable.
There's so much.
I really like how you're kind of using the terms like program and reprogram. Some people are kind of put off by that, but I like that analogy because I often explain our reality as we're living in a video game, and that our higher self is in control of our controller.
Avatars.
Yeah, our avatar. But just like in Sims or something, like sometimes you make a character and you just need to make the character really fast, and they go about their life, and you're like, man, I wish I would have made this character a little different or something. And then we don't really have a way to change that. But in this reality, we have these energy systems, and we have all these awesome energy healers such as yourself that can go in and help with that molecular subatomic structure. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 12 Temple Stargate system you mentioned earlier?
Sure. Essentially, that's what all of the planetary drama has been about. It has been about this fight for the control over the Stargates. You look up, there's even a show on it. You know what I mean? That one's what is it? It's something Stargate. You know what I mean? They put it right in your face and tease you with it. But ultimately, this goes back so far to a point where, we inhabited this planet more than 500 million years ago. And there's plenty of evidence of this, mine shafts, artifacts, all kinds of stuff, and ultimately, we were put on this planet because we were supposed to be the guardians of this system. We were becoming a master key. Because at this point in time, in that single vector of space, there was only access to your Stargate from your own galaxy. So where you were born, depending on your DNA, was dependent on the access to your Stargate system. So ultimately, through interbreeding and much less efficient means of genetic engineering and mutation, they ultimately, started doing this just like in a lab as we would today, and began to genetically, engineer us. And, there's been several tests, several trials. That's where the floods come from. That's where these wiping out of humanity come from, because at times our evolution was too fast. Other times there's just been so many other conflicts. But ultimately, the 12 Templar Stargate system is how we have access to all of our past and future lives. It is how you have access to your higher identities. So what I do is I ultimately love that you look at it as a computer, because that's what we are. We are one of the most efficient biocomputers known to man. And that's literally how I work with people. It's like upgrading their connections, their neural networks, If you look at computers, they try to mimic the brain itself, So ultimately, what I'm doing is I'm gaining or allowing people to gain access to their higher identities, so that all of their identities may embody them, and they can harness all of those lifetimes, that they can embody their divine totality.
Awesome. Now, what would someone expect if they came to you for a session? Do they have to come to you in person? Can they meet with you online? Like, what does an energetic or a subatomic engineering session seem like or go like?
Well, I work probably 98% distantly or remotely. I rarely work in person at this point in my career. Even when I work in person, I just sit next to them and I don't even move anymore. I just visualize things happen in my mind and propagate waves in their field and create electromagnetic interferences. Basically, what I've learned to do is I've learned to encode information into waves. And this is how you communicate on a physiological cellular level with the body. This is how you communicate with molecules and atoms. It's through frequency. It is through waves, expect is a word I don't want to attach to too much. But, primarily all procedures are remotely. And there is ultimately, I go one or two routes. It's either we have a reconnective process or procedure where we have to go in and kind of identify where the disconnect is in their electromagnetic transduction sequences, or how this energy is being transduced from this unified field of creation all the way down into our cellular form. So I have this whole sequence that I've written, and it's truly magnificent how I'm beginning to understand this. But with that being said, there's so many things that happen in sessions. It's either reconnective or we have direct access. And if we have direct access, we can go straight into cells and basically access the information that has been stored on a cellular level. These things get stored in your muscles and your bones and your tissues, and crystalline matrices that store information. Your bones being the biggest crystalline matrices in the body that store the most information. So I do a lot of blood work, lots of bone marrow work, lots of bone recrystallization and oscillation upgrade. And once again, so many things can happen. I have people that come on my table and let out decades of disassociated, unprocessed, and just emotions that they have not been dealing with their whole life, because we're able to access them. I have sessions where people convulse the entire time as their body is recalibrating like a computer. I have sessions where they're completely still as well, but that generally means that there's something obstructing their sequence.
It sounds like you can have really beautiful experiences as well as really scary experiences. Do you want to share maybe something scary that's happened in your experience as a healer?
I want to share one of the most impactful stories that I've actually ever experienced in this field. I got a phone call on a Sunday day. I was relaxing, enjoying the nice sunny afternoon. And I get a phone call and I pick it up. It's from I was in Maryland. This was a person in Virginia calling me. And, they just calling me and they're crying and crying and crying when I pick up, telling me that, then this is going to sound a little strange, but they just opened the Bible and read a verse from the Bible trying to help someone, and that it opened a portal and that they were going to die. That's all they told me. They were so hysterically crying to me. And what am I supposed to do? Turn this person away? They said, I don't have any money. I don't have anything. I said, okay, just come by. I'll help you out. What am I supposed to do at that point,
Right.
So long story short, she gets to my house. I'm talking to my teacher because that's who was referred to her first, and he didn't pick up, and he just so happened to call when she got to my house. And I'm talking to him, and then she starts throwing up almost these these look like gang signs. She's just throwing up these rhythmic hand movements, and she's like, I'm not doing this. So I'm like, okay. So I throw her up on the table, and I work on her for about 4 hours. Now, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
Right now I'm at the point where I kind of do 90-minute procedures, but 4 hours is a long time. This was last year as well. So, and it goes from her consistently convulsing on my table to her relaying this message that is being told to her, that all kinds of negative things about war and very, very interesting stuff. But, we were about 2.5, 3 hours into it, and this entity ultimately takes over and begins speaking through her. And I have about a 2.5 hour dialogue with this said entity. And it was telling me, I don't know anything about the quantum manipulation of universe's little boy, and I don't know what I got myself involved in, and this, that, and the third. And ultimately, I was about to give up 3.5 hours into it or so. And her higher self, her guide, whatever label you would like to place on it, ended up coming through, and I assisted that aspect of herself in the procedure. I took the passenger seat, and it instructed me on what to do. And I caught this on film. I caught about 20 minutes or maybe 12 minutes of it on film. One of the most unbelievable things I've ever experienced. So mind you, when I started filming, this thing was open. It had just opened up a portal in my house, and I was collapsing it. And it told me, you can't collapse portals. Once a connection is established, there's always a connection, whether it is through me or through others. There's always a connection, just like in this almost robotic, reptilian, intense voice, And I didn't take it seriously because I thought I was invincible or whatever. And the next day, I almost got assassinated and I had to move from Maryland. So, it's all so very real. And I mean in the physical. It was one of the most weirdest experiences I've ever gone through.
Wow.
And now it's getting even weirder.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Things are getting really intense. It's it just keeps getting more and more intense. And I feel like I'm saying this every week. Every week it just keeps getting more, things keep getting more crazy. And just I feel like I'm more busy, and it feels like time's collapsing and all this stuff is happening. So that's a really interesting experience that you had. And I didn't realize that was the reason that you moved from Maryland.
Yeah, it actually was, Long story short, I went to the park the next day with my kid, and we went to a park that we weren't familiar with, and we ended up leaving and getting lost on the trails in the neighborhood. And, I got off a trail, realized I couldn't get to my house from there, and I saw these 2 Muslim women walking down the street and was manipulated through my own ego by thinking that I would be judged. You know what I mean? I judged about being judged. Or made an assumption, and that little chink in my armor let in this beast into my life. So, the younger daughter beats me in such compassion and love and understanding. And, off break, she just says, I've been waiting for you my whole life. I have ovarian cancer, and I just lost a kid a couple weeks ago. I haven't even told her anything about myself yet. And she's like, I'm a surgeon. And I'm like, oh, me too, because one of my titles is a subtle energetic surgeon, because this is extremely surgical level. And she was like, I know, we're speaking telepathically. We're twins. And, this wasn't too abnormal in my life, at this point, for people to say something like this to me randomly. So I was like, okay, I was entertaining it. And then she asked me if I had anything to smoke. And I was like, no, not on me. And she basically just almost walked me to my house. like I was under a spell. Just walked me to my house, and the closer we got to my house, the more psychopathic, psychosis, schizophrenic it became. She went to tell me that she was the last Saudi Arabian princess, and that she's been raped and tortured, and that she's causing turmoil in all these countries. Remember, that was a theme the day before. This thing, the entity, this draconian reptilian overlord that I could not pull out myself, was ultimately influencing this individual. And we got to my house, and within 5 minutes of being in my house, it began to torrentially downpour, and it did this for about 2 hours. So I was stuck with her in my house for 2.5 hours, with her telling me all kinds of weird, crazy stuff about keep your enemies close, keep your enemies close, telling me, it became on some succubus level type stuff. She basically looked at me at one point and she goes, I need to pee, can I use your bathroom? I was like, sure. She goes, when I come out, she goes, when I go in there, I'm gonna do this belly dance. And I'm like, oh no, black magic, that's a ritual, you know what I mean? And I was just like, oh man. And she goes, and when I come out, I'm gonna reveal to you my true identities. Let me tell you what, I about fell on the floor when she said that to me. And so she comes out after she's done. She goes, can I use your shower? I just peed on myself. And I'm just like, how much more weird can this get? How much more weird can this get? I told her I didn't have any towels. My washer was broken. She said, it's cool. Middle Eastern, we air dry. It's no big deal. After that, she came out, and I was like, so, do you want to do a session and anything like that? She's showing me her body. She's off some like weird stuff. And I'm like, do you want me to throw you on the table? She was like, can I get on there naked? I was like, no. I was like, what? And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, a procedure, a healing session. I was like, I'm thinking in my mind, isn't this why we enacted this contract? Isn't this why we connected? Because you wanted, some type of facilitation? And she goes, I need all my pain and my hatred and my suffering and my trauma. It keeps me awake. It keeps me conscious. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I didn't, it was one of the most intense things ever. And so the rain finally stops hours later, and I'm finally getting her out my house. And she goes, and she looks at me as she's standing in my doorway and just repeatedly asks me for a knife over and over and over and over with her head tilted to the side all creepily. I just looked at her. I like low-key used the force on her. I was like, I used some suggestion. I said, don't do that. Don't do that. That's all I said to her. And she looked at me, fixed her demeanor and her posture, and said, you're right. Everyone's been telling me not to cut my hair. She was telling me she was on the run from the FBI and she was here illegally and all of this crazy stuff. But I'm thinking, why would you cut your hair with a knife?
Mm-hmm.
That is a little intense and crazy. It sounds
so. Then it got more intense after that, but I won't get into that. But you have to be real careful what you're diving into, because this other side is very, very real. And then, until it directly affects your life, you'll never be able to authentically appreciate that warning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Definitely being a healer, I've realized, and I've heard stories from several other healers, how it can affect not only you, but the people around you and your family, and just like you said, you had to move because once that energy was there, it was just like you have to detach from it. And then it does almost feel like spiritual healers are always like, maybe not on the run, but on the move, because we can't stay in any one place at one time and continue what we love, because we want to help so many people. And it is important as a healer to just remember to keep grounded and to keep kind of yourself, your personal boundaries and shields up for protection while helping others. And I don't want to scare any of our wanting to be healers away, because as you said, we are the guardians of the current world that we live in. So what's maybe the most positive experience you've had as a healer?
At the end of the day, it's really just being here to serve. I think, when you're as vocal and as spoken out as I am when it comes to some of these things, you get a lot of people out there that, kind of try to tarnish your name and are, really just resistant to what you have to say. And what I've come to learn is when it's just even one person that receives the message or the facilitation or whatever it is we're trying to achieve, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. I had a cancer patient, one of my first cancer patients actually, I was working on her. I worked on her 2 times, and she basically had, they were saying she had cancer around her spine, but all of the homeopathic doctors she was going to were saying that it wasn't cancer. I wasn't sensing any cancer. And I was working. I basically learned how to superimpose cymatics, or the shape of frequency on people. And I was just using Om, and I put it on her spine. And mind you, she was bedridden. She's losing all feeling in her left leg. I had her left leg completely stimulating, lifting off the table. Involuntarily reacting, being in a completely different state away from her, and ultimately got her to walk the next day. But in healing, it's extremely important to let your physical catch up to the spiritual and the energetic side. You know what I mean? It's a lot more denser, so it takes much more time to shift. So when you're healing, you don't ever want to rush that process. And I know what it's like to be bedridden and you just want to move, but it's so important to rest and allow it to take hold. So important. But so long story short, once again, I know my stories are really long.
You're fine.
We ended up going to the hospital. She called me on a hospital run. It was one of my first bedside, procedures. I stayed there for probably 6 hours, just assisting her before she went into surgery and stuff like that. And that to me was probably one of the most profound, things I've ever experienced in terms of just the sheer gratitude that some people actually, have when you just give them that space, to be love.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, as you mentioned cancer, what you, as a molecular subatomic engineer, what you see cancer as on a energetic level. I have my own ideas, but I'm curious to see what you think causes cancer, since that seems to be the most widely used term for so many diseases right now.
Well, there's quite a few variables that play into this equation. One of them being the most important is obviously your emotions, and dealing with them in a healthy manner. Now, I haven't particularly identified which specific emotion it is. I think it kind of varies per the individual. Mm-hmm. But another big thing that is completely overlooked within our society is the glandular system, or the endocrine system. It is our chemical stimulus-based communication with how the cells do work, and a big thing in our society is all of these processed sugars and all of these processed foods and all of these things really obstruct those glands. And then another thing on top of that is, emotions. The thyroid, the pituitary glands, and the hypothalamus are the most important glands, as they relay all the messages to the cells, in that triadic sequence. And a lot of people have thyroid issues. A lot of people have pituitary issues. A lot of people have even thalamus. All of these. A lot of it has to do with misfiring in the brain. One of the biggest things I'm beginning to understand in my work is that it's not necessarily the energetic level or even the emotional level. The brain. I wrote an article recently on how the brain is actually the key to ascension as opposed to the heart. Of course, I'm not saying don't unconditionally love people, but there's this part of the brain called the Wernicke's area that's actually located primarily where the pineal gland is. And I'm really beginning to believe that this is the source to electromagnetic conductivity and transduction. I've had some really amazing sessions in terms of not having anyone have any stimulation, and then targeting their brainstem, targeting their medulla oblongata, and targeting their cerebellum. And what I'll do is I'll propagate a wave that basically, it's like, imagine a wireless, you're linking up to a Wi-Fi. You're basically sending out this wave to all of those brain structures, and it resyncs them to fire all simultaneously.
That's crazy and a lot. It seems to make sense. Like you said, that it stems from different places, different cancers come from different places. Just a quick, my personal was different, depending on where you get the cancer could kind of come from, which one of your chakras or what part of your energetic body, like you said, is kind of misfiring or not connecting properly.
I think, ultimately all disease is coming from, like you said, a misfiring. This whole system is electrical and magnetic and chemical, and all of these things require circuits to be closing and connecting and firing efficiently. It's all so intriguing at the end of the day.
Very, very. Well, we're really excited and glad that you took time to share all this information with us. And I feel like if you had time in the future, we would totally love to bring you back and maybe do like a full podcast on just like the Jehovian seals or the 12 Temple Stargate, and just do like a full conversation about that. But for today, I think we've filled a lot of our listeners' brains with a lot of really useful information. I do want to mention that you've been nominated for Healer of the Year for this year's Crystal Chalice Awards. So,
Exciting.
yeah, you were actually one of the nominees last year, but this year you've been brought back and you've been nominated again, and the voting will be up and towards the end of July. So we're really looking forward to that and having you be a part of it. So if you have any topics, maybe we can get together and bring our viewers some more information, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions from them too.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to do something like that. Real quick, I just want to touch on one thing.
Go for it.
That, I don't want to scare people away. I think it's very important that we all take the time to develop that relationship with self so that we can understand what is ours and what is being projected onto us, because this has been one of the biggest lessons that I've been learning. Of course, we are all one at the most core level, but there is a lot of stuff out there that might not necessarily be yours. I've had a lot of people projecting their own inner lack onto me, and then I wonder why I'm acting like this. Of course, at the end of the day, I allow it, but it's just so important to develop that discernment between your thoughts and someone else's. Mm-hmm. That's all I really wanted to say.
That's beautiful. I feel like that was needed, and I'm glad that your energy pulled that through. That
totally agree with that for sure. 100%.
Yeah, definitely needed.
So, guys, sorry if I went in a little too deep.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. But I think it's great, and I'm just curious. Are you still taking sessions? Can our viewers get a hold of you to contact the session?
I can be reached at microgridactivation.com. Or I can be reached, you can just go straight to booking. It's calendly.com/human grid activation. I've actually been a little bit, like you guys, have been going through kind of a transitional period and things like that. So I'm finally kind of stable and anchored a bit. So I'm definitely kind of taking on really anything. I actually just put out an ad. I just started a facial rejuvenation thing because I was looking up stuff last night because there's a lot of places that offer like Botox and stuff out here, and I was like, man, like this is crazy. They're injecting a neurotoxin into your face to prolong your skin. That's crazy. It was scaring me. And I was like, and I started doing some research, and I was like, oh, I can totally, optimize people's skin. I started working with the skin cells a lot as well. My partner had this, we don't even know what it was. It was almost like a cyst on her face, and we got it almost all the way gone from a couple of sessions, just this electromagnetic stimulation therapy. So it's all very real. It's all very possible to access everything, to isolate anything in the body with energy. So
so true.
I kind of cover all areas.
Good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to put those links in the description so anybody who's listening can easily find them.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you, Doian. We'll have your information, and we have a little bio for you on projectbringmetolife.com. That way people can find your information, chat with you. And like I said, if anyone has any questions for Doian, feel free to send them to our email at bringmetolifeproject@gmail.com. That's bringme2lifeproject@gmail.com. And we'll collect those questions and get them together so we can maybe bring Doian back.
Sounds wonderful.
Thanks for shining on with us.